Retirement is a brand new season of life, one full of opportunities. Time for adventure and relaxation. It's a chance to discover who you are, how you want to live, and how to find enjoyment and fulfillment in this next stage of life. Join retiree advisor Len Haidachok on a journey to understand what's possible in retirement and how to achieve your life goals, hopes, and dreams for this exciting new chapter. This is MaxAMAZING Your Retirement with Len Haidachok.
We're glad you're here with us today for another exciting opportunity to maximize your retirement. Len Haidachok is a certified financial planner practitioner and certified life coach and a retiree advisor. He is the founder of Dedicated Financial Services, and on the show today, Len will share his unique perspective on preparing for retirement. Looking so forward to our show today, Len. I think this is going to be a good one.
Looking forward to it.
So what we're going to be talking about today is breaking down what you call our core soul needs. Now, I know this is something we've talked about before on this show, but break this down a little bit. What exactly does that mean when you talk about core soul needs?
I came across the idea of core soul needs through my personal Bible study, actually. And the way that came about is, I've been a financial advisor for 30 years, and I observed how people do finances, how they try to accomplish certain things with their money. And what I wanted to do was see what the Bible says about money. I bought myself a Bible. I call it my money Bible. And I made notes everywhere the Bible talked about money, what people do with money, gold, anything having to do with wealth. I made a note. And I got to the book of Psalms. And the Psalms say very little bit about money. What the Psalms do is they capture the deepest cry of the human heart. Mm-hmm. And I made observations on that. And I came up with what I call core soul needs. These are things that people need to meet or have met at their deepest level. A sense of identity, life purpose, love, relationship, and peace, a sense of well-being. And when I look at the MaxAMAZING Your Retirement system, the system looks at having, first of all, an enjoyable retirement, which we try to maximize, and it also looks at creating purposefulness and having a sense of an experience of an amazing fulfillment.
So as we talk about these core soul needs throughout the rest of the show today, we want to focus on a couple of those, and I want to start with life purpose. Talk about why that is so important, probably for anybody, but certainly for retirees as well.
Well, when you don't have a life purpose, you have nothing in a way to live for.
Yeah,
and I don't want to be that bleak about it, but you need something to energize you. Life is hard. Even when you're enjoying life, there's things about life that makes it hard. So when you have a life purpose, it's something that pushes you along. And the interesting thing about life purpose is that it starts from your identity. Mm-hmm. Life purpose is a living out of who you are, but for your life purpose to be fulfilling, it has to be others-oriented. It has to make a difference. It has to build into the world around you.
Talk a little bit about when it comes to life purpose, you break it down even further into internal and external draws for this life purpose. Talk a little bit about those concepts and what the difference is.
So it's a little bit theoretical, but I think people can resonate with this. When I talk about the internal draw, I talk about your drive. I talk about what your passions are. When I look at external, it's really something outside of yourself. It's something that you feel called to. If it's something that you feel it's just something you have to do. You cannot do life without this being part of your life. Mm-hmm. And whether it's internal or external, sometimes people really understand that. Some people say, I don't really understand the difference. And for a lot of folks, if they have it, it's maybe a sense of both. But it's a real drive, that something that you are passionate about and makes your life very fulfilling.
Well, and I can see why it's so important to have some sort of sense of purpose, something that keeps you going when it comes to your health and your well-being in retirement, your mental state of mind. Talk a little bit about, Len, for those who are able to get engaged, have that sense of purpose, what is it that makes retirees so busy when they get into retirement?
Well, quite frankly, what I have found working with literally thousands of retirees and talking to much more than that is they're looking for a sense of fulfillment, but they're doing it through pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at, how do I make my life meaningful? And because they're spending so much time enjoying enjoyable activities, what they do over time in their pursuit of recreation is their identity becomes that of a recreationist. It's a word I made up. So you know, when when you're retired, I call it, you have unlimited discretionary time. Mm-hmm. They can do whatever they want. They spend so much time pursuing pleasure that that pursuit has become their identity. And because that's their identity, and we try to have fulfillment through our identity, they're doing a lot of pleasurable activities, but the problem is pleasure cannot be fulfilling, because for something to be fulfilling, to have a fulfilling life purpose, it has to be others-oriented.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's like two opposite things. You cannot have something that's self-centered pleasure, nothing wrong with that,
right,
be fulfilling by being others-oriented and making a difference.
Right, and again, something that we've talked about before on this show, you're not going to find a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment, most likely, if you are instead filled with concern about the future, concern about what's going on with your money. And so having a plan can not only help you focus on that sense of purpose, but it can give you a little bit more certainty as well. That's an important concept.
Yeah, that's very important. And when we look at how we tie finances to life purpose specifically,
right,
it's really interesting how people can have a life purpose with money, how money can specifically be tied to what's most important to them. Mm-hmm. And for some folks, it might be accumulating wealth. I mean, that might be their life purpose. I mean, you know, they're investing, they're in it, you know, they're retired, they're on the golf course, they're checking their stocks, because their wealth is such an important part of who they are, and building it is a very important part of their life purpose. Right. Now, some people that have a different view. They'll say, you know, part of my life purpose is to support causes that I want to be involved with, you know, maybe philanthropists. You know, that's part of their life purpose. They want to translate their wealth into making a difference in the world. So those are two separate objectives, or two separate life purposes. Now, which is better? I mean, what's better is what is best for you. It's, you know, who you are, who you want to be. But when we have a sense of trying to pursue our life purpose by being self-centered, whether it's accumulating money or just pleasurable activities, it's hard for that to be really fulfilling in a deep-seated way.
Right. An important place to start with this conversation about our core soul needs. We're going to continue breaking down the rest of them here in just a moment. Here's how you can reach Lynn and the team at Dedicated Financial Services. Thanks for joining us on the show. We'll be back in just a moment.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today, and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Your first day of retirement. What will you wake up to? Freedom? Time? Adventure? Your ideal retirement doesn't just have to come alive in your dreams. Awaken to your new reality. Awaken your spirit, your vision. It's not a dream. It's your next chapter, your future, and it's in reach. Next generation retirement doesn't happen by accident. Plan for your bright future. Awaken to what's possible.
Everybody needs a plan. If Carol's ever going to retire, she needs a plan. So does Bob, if he ever wants to catch a break. Jim and Susan, they need a plan to keep the beat going. And Puddles over there? Yeah, he's gonna need a plan too. You? Yeah, you probably need a plan. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you can use a plan for retirement. We can help.
Thanks for joining us today on Max Amazing Your Retirement with Lynn Haydachuk, who also, by the way, has a Master of Divinity degree. And that's important, Lynn, for what we're going to get into here in this next part of the show. Talking today about what you call core soul needs. One of them involves love and relationships. Let's talk about why that's important.
You know, when you think about the things that really matter to you, relationships is one of them.
Yeah.
And as humans, we're wired to be relational beings. So it's so very important. And it's important that we have that core soul need of love met in our lives, or else we're going to feel unfulfilled, right? So when I was in seminary, you know, I studied the Greek language, and the Greek language has a number of words for love. And a lot of folks are familiar with it's agape, it's unconditional love. And that was really sort of a popular thing to talk about 10 years, unconditional love. But, you know, I never met anyone who loved unconditionally.
Yeah.
That walks on this earth. I mean, you think even the closest relationships we have, you know, our children, our spouses. I mean, do we truly, you know, have an unconditional love for them? There's always some condition, you know. So I think agape is sort of hard to really wrap your mind around. But there's another Greek word, phileo, and that's really, I think, a much more appropriate word to look at the kind of relationships we want to have with people. Okay. It's a word that Philadelphia, you know, city of brotherly love, comes from, and so it's a highly relational love. It's a forbearing love. It's a giving love, but there's also a little bit of a take from it, and it's a highly connected, highly relational love. And I think that's really what we're looking for in this world. People who we have emotional connectedness with, folks who care about us, who want the best for us, people we're willing to sacrifice for. And so I think that really helps understand the kind of relationships that we're looking for in all phases of our life, and of course, retirement as well.
Sure, and I'm sure some of the types of relationships we have in retirement are a little bit different from what they were during our working years. Now you have what you call, or what you describe as, expedient and strategic relationships. Talk a little bit about those two categories and what's the difference.
Expedient relationships are the types of relationships we have that are convenient to have, people that we run across, maybe people that we work with, maybe our neighbors. These are the kind of relationships that serve a purpose, and it's not necessarily a manipulative kind of relationship. It's just what we do.
Sure.
So like we work with a coworker. You know, we have certain things we collaborate with, but outside of that connection related to work, we don't have much of a relationship. Neighbors, you know, we have a relationship person across the street, both sides of us, and that's the extent of the relationship we have with them, right? And so when we move away or we change our work, what happens with that relationship?
Fades away.
Fades away, right? Because there's no depth to it.
Right.
And when we have a strategic relationship, well, that's a little bit different, because a strategic relationship meets an important need in our lives. Right. Those are the relationships we have emotional connectedness with. Those are the relationships that we care about others and they care about us. We go out of the way, we serve them for their benefit, even though we don't have anything to gain from it, because it's just an expression of our love. Those are the kind of relationships we have with certain select people from years ago, from college, from the armed forces, from even high school and childhood. Very few relationships that we can have at that emotional level. Hopefully we have that with people who are closest to us. Right. But those are very important relationships, but also limited and rare.
And those are the ones that require a little bit more work to maintain. And I imagine, Lynn, this becomes really important as you get into retirement, because you leave all of those more convenient relationships with your coworkers behind, and now you are having to maintain totally different relationships with new people and your former people from your past in retirement as well, right?
Right. You have to redo your social connectedness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you retire, you don't have that connection, those same, you know, expedient relationships with your coworkers, with customers, with vendors, right through your workplace. Right. And you have to replace that. And it's also true that some of those relationships we had were somewhat expedient, but there was depth to them. We had meaningful relationship with our coworkers while we were working, and we need to replace that meaningful connection with with people who share our retirement stage in life or whoever we're doing life with in this stage.
Right. When we're talking about relationships, Lynn, let's try to figure out how to bring money in here. Is it true money can't buy us love?
Well, I don't know. I never paid for love before, so I don't really know. But, what money does, money helps us connect with the economy. Mm-hmm. It helps us purchase goods. It helps us purchase services. So money can't buy love, but it's a tool that we can use to express love. Mm-hmm. It's a tool that we can enjoy relationships with folks that we do love. But ultimately, finances are something that will buy us pleasure. So it's a way that we can enjoy time together, but it's not going to have a real sense of depth.
Right.
So when we look at how we structure finances, well, we're not going to structure it from finances from a standpoint of spending money, but we could structure it in such a way that if we want to make a difference in other people's lives, we want to make an impact in other people's lives, or we want to make an impact on organizations that we have connectedness with, organizations that we want to make a difference with. We might want to set up our finances in such a way to create a legacy, either by having resources to give while we're alive or to transfer assets upon our passing through an estate. And that's when we do estate planning. Mm-hmm. So for some folks, estate planning is very important. If they want to leave a legacy upon their passing, that expresses their love.
All right, and one other comment here as we talk about love and relationships in retirement. For folks who are married, this is a whole new ball game when you've got everybody who's been going to work every day. Now we're all at home together every day. I imagine it introduces a brand new dynamic into your marriage and your romantic relationships as well. So that's got to be interesting also.
Some folks, they'll stay at work because they don't want that 24/7 relationship with the spouse.
Right.
I mean, you kind of laugh about it, but it's true. Because,
yeah.
It redefines life, right? Because
right.
when you're going through life, both working, your relationship is limited to those spaces in your life. When it's all the time, you have to reimagine what that looks like.
Yeah.
You have to redo stuff. So that's, of course, trying change in your life.
Important insights, Lynn. Just something else to keep an eye on. Coming up next, Lynn will talk about how you can experience peace with your retirement. But first, here's how you can reach Lynn and the team at Dedicated Financial Services. Stay tuned.
Where would you go if you could go anywhere? What would you do if you could do anything? How would you fill your days? Who would you spend them with? When you retire, what will you explore? Let us show you how a complete retirement plan can open your world to endless possibilities. Explore your retirement.
Everybody needs a plan. If Carol's ever going to retire, she needs a plan. So does Bob, if he ever wants to catch a break. Jim and Susan, they need a plan to keep the beat going. And Puddles over there? Yeah, he's going to need a plan too. You? Yeah, you probably need a plan. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you can use a plan for retirement. We can help.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Thanks for joining us on MaxAMAZIng Your Retirement with Lynn Haydachok. Lynn is sharing his insights on preparing for retirement and how to navigate a different stage of life. Now, we've been talking today, Lynn, about our core soul needs, which you identify as identity, life purpose, love, and peace. We haven't talked about peace yet, but why do you list that one very last?
It's interesting. The most important core soul need, the way I view it, is identity, because everything starts with identity.
Okay.
And the reason I put that last is because I want everything to finish with peace, which is about how you are doing, your sense of well-being, which is, we'll talk a little bit more about it, I'm sure, in our program, but it's less about circumstances as it is who you are.
Do you think peace is better understood when it's lacking in some way?
I think it gives a better perspective.
Okay.
What is lack of peace? It's you have chaos, you have disorder, disorganization, you have lack, there's strife. So I think it gives a perspective when we lack peace because of all these other things. I think we do appreciate peace, and we see how important it is when we have stillness and calmness in our lives.
Right. That deep-seated contentment, I would say. How can we better understand peace when we're looking outside our culture?
I've studied different languages from seminary, and I had an opportunity to study the Hebrew language, and there's just an extraordinarily beautiful word in the Hebrew language, shalom, which I think many people know. But what's interesting about that word is the root word is complete. And we think of the word complete, that gives us a good insight into peace. Because when you have completeness, there's no lack, there's nothing missing, there's no striving. It's internally complete. It has structural integrity. And so when in a Jewish culture, someone wishes someone peace, they wish them a sense of wholeness. They wish them a sense of unity, a sense of togetherness. And very much in the Hebrew culture, which we don't appreciate in our country, there's a great sense of community. And when people are wishing one another peace, they're wishing them peace as an individual, but they're wishing them peace in the context of the entire community.
Right.
And that's just, I think, a beautiful expression and understanding of peace in a very holistic and a very inclusive way.
So Lynn, when we talk about peace, you break this down into what you call circumstantial and transcending peace. Explain those two concepts a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful for folks. When we look at circumstantial peace, a lot of folks look at money for circumstantial peace.
Sure.
But when we look at circumstantial peace, we need our surroundings to give us peace. We need the things that we're taking in, the stimuli or the relationship, all the swirl in life has to be at a still place for us to experience peace.
Okay.
But we know that those things are outside of our control, and the only thing we can control is our reaction to things. So transcending peace is an understanding that no matter what's going on out here, I'm okay here.
Yeah.
And to have that transcending peace, again, I take a spiritual perspective. We need to have powers outside of ourselves, because if there are things really dreadful outside of us that we can't control, we need to either deny that as a reality or somehow overcome that. Now, maybe we have the intestinal fortitude to overcome all these different circumstances, but having that external power that's stronger than us, to have confidence and faith in, to be stronger than our trials and our difficulties, is often very helpful.
And just to bring it back around to that financial conversation as we wrap up the show, there's an analogy there too, Lynn, when you talk about focusing on what you can control as part of that transcending peace. I think we might want to take that same approach when it comes to what's going on with our money. We can't control the markets. We can't control a lot about what happens in our economy and our world around us. So how do we focus on what we can control and find a little bit more peace there with our financial situation?
It's very interesting that people seek peace from their finances.
Sure.
There's even courses about having peace with finances, right? So that's a very important part of life. But what's interesting is money can't buy you love, and money can't buy you peace. Case in point, you have some kind of trying situation in life. You hear bad news about a family member. You're on a plane, and the pilot says, "Hey, we have some engine trouble." The first thing you're thinking about is not, what if my portfolio is doing okay, right? So it's irrelevant to that circumstance. Why? Because finances are limited to providing, if we want to use the word peace, and it's not going to be an abiding, deep-seated, transcending peace. It'll be somewhat of a circumstantial peace, but it's peace related to our economic situation. So we have peace related to that small little realm dealing with the economy. We know we can pay our bills. We know we're not going to run out of money. We know if something bad happens, we'll still be okay financially, but it's not the transcending peace that people need, which money isn't equipped.
Right, right. That's a really good point when you kind of break it down that way. We have just a couple minutes left in the show today, Lynn. Any final thoughts? We've been talking today about our core soul needs, especially focusing on that idea of life purpose and love and peace. What would you like our viewers to take away from today's show?
Well, one thing I like to say is what's interesting with our core soul needs, that a lot of times we spend our efforts trying to accumulate our wealth. Mm-hmm. And by accumulating our wealth, people try to get a sense of meaningful identity. They try to get a sense of life purpose. They try to get a sense of love. They try to get a sense of peace. But, money can give you a sense of accomplishment, but it's hard for that to be a meaningful identity because there's always going to be someone who's going to have more money too, and you'll be somewhat inadequate. Money can give us a sense of control by having wealth to kind of control our circumstances, but it's not going to give us a life purpose accumulating money because we can never accumulate enough money that it's going to make a difference in the world. And it's also not creating this connection with the world. It's not meeting a need. It's not making a difference. When we look at collecting wealth for the purposes of love, well, money can't buy us love, but it gives us a sense of pleasure. We can use money for pleasure. And when we look at accumulating money, it's not going to give us peace and give us financial security. What's interesting is by giving our money away, we can move from a sense of prestige and having money to an identity as being a giving person. We can move from a sense of having wealth to control the world to being a person who's a giving person. That's our life purpose. When we're giving away money, instead of being pleasure, we can give it out of love. And when we have the ability to give money away, we have peace that we don't need it in our lives. We're not relying on it for our well-being.
Right, just important to keep things into perspective. Thanks so much for your insights here today, Lynn. And more ideas, these ideas and more are in Lynn's book as well. Thanks so much for watching the show today. Here's how you can reach Lynn and the team at Dedicated Financial Services. For Lynn Haydachok, I'm Jen Rizak, wishing you a great day and a MaxAMAZING retirement, and we'll see you next time.